Brooke Pryor, ESPN. She covers the Steelers. She covers the National Football League. She saw up close the Kansas City Chiefs start building their dynasty. And let's dig in. We have, a little bit more than 24 hours until the draft begins in Green Bay. Where are the Steelers right now? First of all, have you messed around at all with the ESPN mock draft simulator?
I cannot say that I have.
Oh, I'm hooked.
I'm at the point in this pre-draft cycle where I would just like to close my eyes and it be Thursday night at 8 p.m. Maybe even fast forward to, I don't know, the 9:45 or so when the Steelers are going to be picking at 21. We are in the silliest part of silly season.
Yeah.
And just finished talking with Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan yesterday about their pre-draft plans. And to borrow a phrase from Aaron Rodgers, they are open to anything and attached to nothing at this point. They could go with a quarterback. They could go defensive tackle. They could go running back in the first round. I do think that at this point, the Steelers are not going to reach for a quarterback. I do not see them trading up to get a guy.
Right.
I don't see them, if their preferred quarterback isn't available at 21, they're not going to reach on another guy for the sake of reaching, for the sake of getting a quarterback. That's just what I've gathered in having conversations. I think that despite what Art Rooney II told me a couple months ago about they haven't really learned anything from the Kenny Pickett experience, I do think that the decision makers, the scouting department, that staff has learned something from that you have to feel really good about a quarterback, because sometimes even if you do, things can go sideways and it doesn't pan out, and you don't want to be in a similar situation in 2 or 3 more years. So at this point, I think the most interesting thing to me is that Mike Tomlin does not typically go into detail about any one specific prospect. Mm-hmm. He was asked about Shedeur Sanders yesterday, and he went into detail about what he liked about him, about the intangible qualities, the toughness, the competitive spirit, all of those things, which I don't remember him ever doing with other prospects, but now maybe he's changed. Maybe if we'd asked him about Jackson Dart or another prospect, he would have given us a similar answer and talked about the details in meeting with him. It's kind of hard to say because he was only asked specifically about Shedeur Sanders. But later on in the press conference, he mentioned how much he likes the gamesmanship of the draft and people tracking who they're bringing in to visit, who they're not bringing in to visit, who he's talking to at a pro day, who he's not talking to at a pro day. So either it is a smokescreen that he's talking about Shedeur Sanders and trying to make the other 31 teams think that that's who the Steelers want, but they're not actually going to take him, or maybe it's a double jinx Jedi mind game where they're talking about him so people think they won't take him, so then they're actually going to take him. When I say I need it to be Thursday night, this is how in the weeds I am. I desperately need it to be Thursday night.
Brooke Pryor is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. Here's the thing about maybe what why he's going into detail about Shedeur Sanders is that he knows the Steelers aren't going to trade up, because they really don't have the assets this year anyway to trade up in this particular draft. They'd have to use future assets. I don't know that that's ever a good idea. And they know that he's not going to fall all the way to 21. I would imagine that there are teams, if Shedeur Sanders is their fancy, would trade up if he's still there, if he gets past, say, the Giants or at 3 or the Saints at 9, or if the Giants or if the Browns take Travis Hunter, if they don't trade back into the first round ahead of Pittsburgh to take Shedeur Sanders. So is their quarterback of fancy, if you will, is it Jackson Dart at 21? And if not, how can they trade back and get value for a second round stab at a quarterback?
Yeah, I know that they like Jackson Dart in the pre-draft process. I don't get the sense that they necessarily prefer him over Shedeur Sanders. I could be wrong, but to me, in talking with the Steelers, there's only a handful of quarterback prospects that they feel really, really good about that they would take at 21 or period in this draft. To me, my gut instinct is that if Shedeur isn't there at 21, they would try to trade back to recoup some of the assets that they have given up in other trades. Like they don't have a second-round pick right now. They use that to get DK Metcalf. I could see them trading back to try to recoup that second-round pick or even get an additional third-round pick because in talking with people with the Steelers, they do think that there's a lot of value in those day 2 rounds right now. Like this is not a very top-heavy draft, but there's a lot of meat right in the middle. And maybe you get an additional third-round pick or you find a way to get in the second round, and then you could take a guy like Jalen Milroe, maybe a Kyle McCord or a Will Howard. I don't know that he would go as high as second round, maybe third, fourth round. I could see them drafting Will Howard and then him come in as the backup to Mason Rudolph, because the other piece of all of this is that the Steelers, they understand that there's this outside perception that Mason Rudolph is not a good quarterback.
Yes.
And he has seasons that you can point to and say he is not a good quarterback. But when they look at the way that things ended in 2023, the way that he led this team to the playoffs, they lost to the Bills, but he wasn't necessarily the reason for that. It was a really good Bills team. I think that they feel comfortable enough and confident enough in Mason Rudolph that he can be their bridge guy this year to get them to a better class in 25 or in 26, maybe even 27, depending on how long they can use Mason as a bridge or how high or low their pick ends up being for the 26 year. I think that the national perspective is that Mason Rudolph does not get as much credit as the Steelers organization internally is giving him. And the locker room really likes him. I have seen that with my own eyes. This is a group that maybe they were, liked him in preference of Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, but I think in general he's really endeared himself to this group of players, and they will play for him. So if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, if they don't get Shedeur Sanders, if they don't have a day one outside or a day one starting quarterback that comes in from the outside, I think the Steelers feel good with Mason Rudolph. Obviously, we got to see how things play out and how he looks on the field, because in Tennessee there wasn't necessarily a whole lot of inspiring play there or things that you would point to and say, yeah, that guy could be a full-time starter. But I think the Steelers are trusting their own evaluation when he's been in their building versus how he's done when he left it.
Yeah, not to mention that Tennessee was a total mess. Brooke Pryor is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. What is the other position or two positions that Pittsburgh must reinforce in this draft or in some other way? What are the two positions that need improving for them?
Got to be defensive line and the running back position. I think that's why the Steelers had the most visitors in those two positions. They hosted 9 running backs, 9 defensive linemen, 8 of them being defensive tackles.
Right.
Because while the defense has been so strong for them, the defensive line, A, is aging, and B, really faded down the stretch. I mean, their run defense over the last 3-4 games of the season, including that playoff game, was atrocious. I mean, Derrick Henry absolutely obliterated the Steelers on the ground. They have got to get a better nose tackle. They've got to fill some of the holes on that defensive front and understand that Cam Hayward, while he played one of his best seasons last year, he's still aging. They have got to come up with a plan to backfill for him and pair a young defensive lineman with Keanu Benton. That's why I think if the Steelers don't go with a quarterback at 21, they could end up taking a defensive lineman. There could be a number on the board: Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon from Oregon. There are a number of guys that they could get. And then running back, I mean, they let Najee Harris go in free agency. They didn't sign him to that 5th-year option. They've got Jalen Warren and they've got Kenneth Gainwell. Jalen Warren, I think, is a really strong running back. I do worry about his durability. I think that the Steelers want him to be RB1, but I don't know that his body will allow him to do that. He played hurt for a lot of last year. I think that they need a bruising running back like an Omarion Hampton that can come in there and be an every down back that complements Jalen Warren, and maybe it becomes a running back by committee approach more than it's been when Najee Harris was in Pittsburgh. And so I think that the Steelers are not scared off of drafting a first-round running back, even though it didn't necessarily work out with Najee Harris long-term. I don't think that that's telling them, okay, well, we can't use this premium pick on a first-round running back again, because they know what an important position it is.
Well, so just so you know, I did the mock simulator for the Steelers as the Steelers. I took Walter Nolan at 21, and then in the third round, I took Cam Scatabo from Arizona State. So there you go. The Steelers' problems have been fixed. I fixed them. Now all you have to do, I'm saying this, of course, to the Steelers, not to you, Brooke, because I don't think you have the power to do this, is go convince Aaron Rodgers to sign. Even though I don't love Aaron Rodgers, I do think he would gives you a better chance to win than Mason Rudolph.
I don't know that anyone can convince Aaron Rodgers to do anything.
He's not. There's nobody else that wants Aaron Rodgers.
Not at this point is my understanding. I can tell you that the Steelers, even after the Pat McAfee interview, where to me it sounded like he was soft launching a retirement, that is not how they viewed it. They've said that there's nothing from conversations I've had in that building. They were not surprised by anything that Aaron Rodgers said. And when Aaron Rodgers said, those who need to know about what's going on in his personal life off the field, count the Steelers among those people that know. But I watched that interview and I saw red flag after red flag after red flag.
That's Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly. That's not the perception in Pittsburgh. They still really want him. Everything they say about there not being a hard deadline is true. I mean, they feel like he's a plug-and-play type of player, that he can come in, whether it's mandatory minicamp, whether it's the first day of training camp, he can come in and step in and kind of seamlessly transition to the Steelers and get acclimated to the locker room, and the locker room get acclimated to him. I don't know how much I believe that that's the case, but the thing that I've heard from top to bottom all around the league is what a good teammate Aaron Rodgers is, and that his private persona is a lot different from the public persona that he puts out there.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Right. Like if he ends up in Pittsburgh, I will be very interested to see that, because I've heard nothing but good things about how he treats his teammates, about the relationships that he has with them. And I think that's the reason why the Steelers feel like he can come in and transition pretty seamlessly. But man, it is hard to ignore the outside circus that seems to get bigger and louder with every week that passes and every interview that he does, talking about the situation without it being resolved.
Yeah, no question. And I have all the faith in the world that if he does decide to sign with the Steelers, that Mike Tomlin will not approve the mid-August vacation to Egypt that the Jets put up with in the previous year. That was all about, I think, just seeing what Robert Saleh could stomach as the head coach. I do think that Aaron has an authority issue, but by all accounts, the Jet players had zero problem with Aaron Rodgers. All right, so between now and by the way, did you like Walter Nolan and Cam Scatabo?
Oh yeah, those are great picks.
Yeah, thank you.
Scatabo would be really fun.
Super
and Walter
fun.
Nolan, the only thing is that I have read, I have not been told this personally, but I have read there are some maybe work ethic concerns with Walter Nolan, some off the field flags. I have not had any scouts say that to me, but that's, I think, in some of the mocks and some of the big board breakdowns, that has been a recurring theme. So the Steelers have to have, I think, an infrastructure to manage that, and I think they definitely have that on the defensive side, because if I'm a rookie and I'm coming in there, I'm not taking plays off the side Cam Hayward in practice or in any walk of life. So I think that the offense, I would maybe give a little bit more pause to bringing in a guy with those kind of issues. The defense, good luck trying to, if that's how you were in college, you're not going to be like that in the NFL. Otherwise, you're not going to last long in Pittsburgh.
Brooke Pryor, ESPN, at BE Pryor on Twitter. You're the best. Continue your, air quotes, draft preparation. And we'll talk to you very soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Brooke.